And welcome to the Howard Eskin Show as we entertain another special guest. You know what? I have had Hall of Famers on so far, and I have another one tonight. Just let me tell you before I get to our Hall of Famer tonight, Eric Allen is a special guy. And I just want to remind people, after we're done talking with Eric, the topics of the day, and there's obviously a lot going on in Philadelphia, and we're going to talk to Eric about what has gone on in this city. But I want to tell people that at the start of the show, nice enough to be sponsored by ABC Tickets. Tickets anywhere in the world, you can get them from ABC Tickets, and that would be 1-800-355-5555. You don't even need the one, but great people. I've known him for 30 years. All right, let's bring into the show. He's a Hall of Famer. Damn, he's a Hall of Famer. Think about that as a title. Eric Allen, Hall of Famer. It's amazing when you think about it, when you think about what it means to somebody. And I want to welcome Eric Allen into the podcast. Welcome, Hall of Famer. Hall of Famer. How do you like that sound?
Man, it's great. It's just been a amazing couple of weeks, just kind of digesting it all. And, it kind of just says all those late night workouts and film prep, listening to coaches, it was all worth it. And you just don't have any idea what it's going to be like. But this last week, with the Eagles kind of dominating the Super Bowl also, it was just amazing. You know, the welcome that we received and just the overall experience was something I never, when you're playing, you don't think about the moment because you are just trying to make sure your team wins and, you cover the guy and you make plays. And then afterwards, you start to kind of look and, see guys who get there, but it was nothing like I imagined. It was just on top of the world.
When you're playing, Art, this is the deal. When players are playing, when somebody says to an Eagle player this year, well, were you thinking about a Super Bowl like the 5th game of the season? No, you can't do that. Were you thinking about the Hall of Fame as you were making great plays? No, you can't think about that. You got to think about the game. Yeah, it just, people would say, oh, were you thinking about being in the, no. Maybe a few years afterwards, right?
Right, yeah. Well, while you're playing, and that's the great thing about where I started in Philadelphia, obviously the emphasis on defense and the way Buddy had designed the defense, it required you to not only have a certain skill set to play, running, jumping, all those things, how much you can lift and all this stuff, which is incredibly important. But more importantly, I got just immersed in being able to understand what the defense is trying to accomplish versus offense A, B, C, or D. And that played more a part of why I'm sitting here, as a Hall of Famer than the athletic ability. And I don't think, Buddy gets enough credit because all 11 of us on the football field had to be as good as our position coaches, meaning, you understand it, but we didn't really go to the huddle when we were playing in Philly. And people thought that we were kind of just milling around and tired. No, we didn't go to the huddle because our calls were based on the formations that we were going to see. So there was really no need to go to the huddle. So all of us had to have a great understanding of situations and being able to adjust and adapt on a motion or a shift. And I think that allowed most of the players who had that athleticism to marry the mental part of the game and be able to play for a long period of time.
All right. Now, I don't know if you remember, I was not a fan of Buddy Ryan. and Buddy was not a fan of mine.
Fan of
On
yours.
he No, he would rip me on his radio show,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
would rip him on my radio show.
yeah,
And
yeah,
one of the things I didn't like, he was he was in love with the defensive players.
yeah.
But
He was.
I don't know that he really cared enough about the people on offense. Am I right there?
You are right. Most teams you go to, and when I left Philadelphia, you get on the airplanes and you fly from coast to coast, and I wasn't used to offensive players being in the front of the plane, because Buddy, we were always in the front of the plane. He called the offensive players pretty much by their number, and if you're in a defense and you're a starter and you're a good player, he called you by your last name. There's just so many instances of Buddy just not really caring about the offense. I remember one time when we were struggling a little bit, and he came in, and after the whole week, as an offensive coordinator, you prepare your team, you have all these plays set up in certain scenarios, and Buddy just came in and said, "Hey, listen, forget the game plan, just get around to the third down and let him run." It's like the coaches are like, "Oh, okay, I guess that's the plan." But he would never do that defensively. We had a game plan. We stuck to the game plan. He had situations that he blitzed in, situations that he played man in. And so, we just had everything. We ate first. We're in the front of the bus, the front of the plane. You could tell, we were a defensive love team.
Well, the thing, Randall Cunningham, and obviously you played with Randall.
Yeah.
I think, from what I was told by some of the coaches, first of all, some of the coaches told me it was like a Chinese fire drill sometimes on the sideline
Yeah.
when the
Yeah.
offense was out there. So I was right. I heard a lot of things, but he he would tell Randall, if you don't see anybody, just run.
Just
That's
run.
not coaching.
Yeah.
But am I right there?
Yeah. Can you imagine in today's game, just like the quarterback, hey, man, if the guy's not open the first guy, hey, just take it down and run. But I think what stunted Randall's growth was the passing of our offensive coordinator in the offseason of, I believe, 88. So I think Doug Scoville passed away.
Yep.
Remember, he was in the training room riding up the bike and had a heart attack. I think that really stunted Randall's growth. And the next guy who came in to be the offensive coordinator didn't have the necessary trophies in the case that Buddy respected. And that's why 89 through, the rest of Randall's career with Buddy, he was never able to mature, and not mature as as an adult, but as a football player from year to year. And I think early on, they had a really solid game plan for Randall to utilize, his athleticism at some points. But you can see in 88, he was a totally different player in 88 than he was, after Doug passed away. And it's just unfortunate, obviously, that he passed away. And then that first playoff game in 88, we're a passing team. We have, Keith Jackson, Chris Carter, Mike Quick, all these guys. And all of a sudden, the fall kind of rolls in from nowhere. So I think that really stunted his growth, not having that offensive coordinator who had been there and done that.
You know what? That was your first year, 88. You were drafted in 88, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? You would have been a first-round pick in today because you
Yeah.
were the 30th pick, and
Right.
now the 30th pick is in the first round, but then it was it was the top of the second round. So
let me tell you a story about that.
okay.
No cell phones, obviously. So the messages are going from team to agent. But before they went to team to agent, we had, do you remember Ronnie Jones, our strength and conditioning coach?
Yep.
He was an ASU strength and conditioning coach a couple years before he went to Philly. And during the middle of the season, he calls me, calls the training room, like, hey, let me talk to Eric. So I get on the phone and talk to him. He's like, hey, man, Buddy Ryan loves you. Like, this is like week 5 or 6, in college. I'm like, what are you talking about? He say, man, Buddy Ryan loves you, man. Just continue doing what you're doing. He likes your effort and all this stuff. So I called my agent and like, hey man, Buddy Ryan. So they became, they started talking before the whole draft process happens. So he's like, hey, I'm gonna choose you with that 13th pick in the first round. And as the process went on, he was like, hey, I like the tight end out of Oklahoma also. So I'm gonna try and find a way to get one of you guys in the first round, and whoever's left, hopefully can move back up in the draft. So as it comes down, they think a team before them or after them is going to choose a tight end. So they choose Keith Jackson, call my agent, tell him, listen, the Bears are going to call. Don't answer the phone. We're going to make a draft trade and move up and get you. So I'm kind of sitting there like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Because as a young guy, we had a player who played at a local high school here in San Diego named Wally Henry, and he went to Philly. So we were big Eagle fans. And so I was like, cool, I didn't know any better. So the phone rings, we don't answer. The next phone call rings. Philadelphia had moved up and picked me in that second round, which is the 30th pick. So it was just a kind of a crazy start to my NFL career.
When you think about, okay, you got drafted first by the Eagles. You spent the more years with the Eagles than any other team. That was 7.
Yeah.
And when you left, this city wasn't as crazy as it is now when it comes, but it was still a football
Really?
town. Oh, this is, they tore down, this is great. I don't know if you even saw that. They tore down traffic lights Sunday night after. What are they doing? What are you doing? They're out of control. But they were still good fans. I remember I'm lucky enough to have covered many eras of players, and that was one of the eras in covering you. And that's, I realized, you're a good guy. I can't say that about everybody now, but you're a very good guy. But players then didn't worry about social media. Didn't worry about the media as much. There were maybe, and at that time I was doing TV, but there were 4 TV stations. So I started TV in '82 before you got here, and I did radio too. But players didn't worry about all that stuff then. How much different? And we're going to get to the game on Sunday for sure. But how much different is the mentality of a player from then to now? With all, if I say something, it's going to be on social media. If I say something, it's going to be. How much, and with all the shows on the cable and ESPN and Fox and all that stuff, how much does a player worry about that and didn't worry about it back then?
Well, back then, for instance, when you came into the locker room, everyone had an opinion, good or bad. They had an opinion, but you were in the locker room. You had a history with not only football, but across the board, hockey, baseball, basketball. So if there was an issue that you made or said, we could kind of go to you and say, hey man, what did you see here? And we can have a honest disagreement. You're coming from your point of view, and I would come from my point of view, and it would be over at that point.
Yes.
And as a player, you were able to make mistakes. You were able to make mistakes on and off the field without being thrown out with the trash. Now, these young guys are so fearful of saying or doing anything that would slightly mess things up that they're kind of shielded, and you don't really see everyone kind of either you're someone who's an outward guy and you're just kind of talking like the guys who have podcasts during the year, so they have to have content, so they're going to be a little out there in the comments they make, or you have people who totally are against saying anything. You're like right down the line in neutral, and so that's difficult for teammates to really kind of bond together, because they don't do like camaraderie nights anymore. They don't do that stuff, because after they leave practice, they're either going to a podcast or making sure they're not seen in public. They don't want what they're doing in public to be shown. And I understand that. I work for the Raiders now, and it's difficult with these young players to come in and you have a couple of guys who are noteworthy and they're on podcasts, and you have a bunch of guys who are not. And there's a definite dividing line. And I don't think that's healthy for the locker room dynamics. I would much rather prefer that the media stuff be outside of the locker room and allow those guys to learn each other and never have situations in the locker room that spills over into the social media world. And you can call me old or whatever, but I just think it was much better in that place where a young guy would come in and have opportunities to make mistakes.
Well, but here's what the difference is, and I talked about this with Charles Barkley, and I talked about it with Dick Vermeil when I had him on the second episode. And Charles made a point of this. Most people don't show up. So if I've said things about people, obviously and people were angry with me, but if you go there and discuss it with them, I mean, I've almost had fights with, they're not going to fight, but they want to talk to you. They want to, okay, why did you say this? And they would yell at you. And I said, well, let's talk about it. Jason Worth, Mitch Williams, you go down the list, Andre Waters, you go right down the list. I don't remember. I'm going to tell you a story now. But anyway, let me ask you the question first. Would that be productive more productive in today's world if guys, and most guys don't show up, if guys would show up once they said something, whether it was talk radio, whether it was TV, most guys don't show up. How much more productive would it be if they showed up and addressed it with the player?
That would be so significant and important to have that accountability. And that's kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about someone who hopefully understands the game, has a viewpoint about the game, and there's something in your game they may not like or they've seen and they make a comment about it. And then on Monday, they come into the locker room. So you're able to say, hey man, why'd you say that? And then you can maybe say to them, well, it was cover 2 or it was cover 4, and here's my responsibility in that situation. And now you guys can either like hash it out like, oh yeah, I knew it was cover 2, but don't you have this? I'm like, no, that's not our responsibility. My responsibility in this coverage is to do A, B, and C. And then you can kind of like, hey, all right, then you saw it this way. I gave you my input and told you what it was about. Now, are we square? Are we cool? And you can go on from there. Now, there's just so many people who can comment on the game and never, ever have to face that accountability. And I'm not saying every comment is wrong. I'm just saying that you rarely have to go in on Monday. And usually that was that day, Monday, right? If you said somehow, you were going to be in the locker room on Monday. And, JB Jerome or Andre or Wes, you're like, hey, man, Wes didn't do a very good job. He's kind of getting old. The knee is not great. You're going to come there on Monday, though.
Absolutely.
Right? And face that. And, you're going to get whatever comments that the team, because we're always going to rally around our guys. But that's accountability. And that's what respect is all about. You're going to give your viewpoint. We have an opportunity to kind of debate that in the locker room, and then it's squashed. You never see that now.
And I would always get together with a player. When it was Jason Worth, because I called him a marginal Major League Baseball player when I had a fight with Charlie Manuel. So he waited till the end of the year. End of the year, and he poured champagne on me when they won the division. Marginal Major League Baseball player? I said, you waited till the end of the year to address that with me? I mean, stop. I said, after the playoffs, we're talking. Talk for 45 minutes now, we're good friends. I mean, it's the way it is. But I'll tell you, one day at the Eagles, and I forget what year it was, the Eagles started off 0-5. This was great. I'll never forget this. And I don't know which year it was. Randall Cunningham was the quarterback, and we're all waiting for Randall in the locker room on a Monday. They're 0-5. So it was Johnson. He was a defensive lineman. What was his first name? But he was a defensive lineman. But Johnson was his last name. So he looks at me. I'm sitting there waiting for Randall, and we're all waiting for Randall. And he says, what do you think about this team? I said, you really want to know? He says, yeah, I really want to know. So there's a whole bunch of guys in the locker room, and I said, "This team sucks, really sucks." I said, "You know, I grew up in this town. In the early '70s, there was a team that I think might have been worse, but I'm not sure." Jerry Williams, with a guy named Jerry Williams as a coach, but they suck. And then I saw, like 2 lockers away, I saw a wide receiver. His name was Jeff Graham. And
Yeah, I remember Jeff.
you remember Jeff?
Yeah.
So I said, "You see that guy over there, Jeff Graham? He has 1 more reception than me. 5 games into the season." I said, "You got to be kidding me." I said, "This team is brutal." He says, "Well, what would you do?" This is what you can't say this nowadays, but I'll say it because it's now tongue in cheek. He said, "What would you do?" I says, "I'd point to about 5 guys, and I'd say, 'Hey, you guys come with me. Let's go outside the locker room.' And then I'd throw a bomb in the locker room and blow up the team."
Yeah.
His eyes almost popped out.
Right.
But I wasn't afraid because I could address everybody because I was there all the time.
Right.
And players, players would respect you for that. They may not like what I've said.
Right.
And you as a player would respect guys that do that.
Yes, you do. And not only that, but you have skin in the game because you've been there. You've been through the good times, the bad times, the okay times. So we feel like we wear that kind of as a badge of honor, to be quite honest with you, that that part of Philadelphia in those times, we thought, hey, man, they were going to, if you didn't play well, they were going to call you out. So not only the fan base are you out there playing for, but you're playing for the respect of your teammates, the guys who cover you, because at the end of the season, all those people who cover you, they've been there every single game, seen the ups and downs, and they understand what you've been through throughout the practice days. They've seen you banged up a little bit. They know that you and the coach may not be square on certain situations. One coach is maybe frustrated that another coach. You guys knew all that information. The guys now on social media, they don't have that insight because they're not there. They may be able to break down film and give you an idea of what coverages guys are playing and who was open and that thing from far away, but they're not in the bottom of the vet, when the rats and cats are like you guys were. Give you some perspective.
Hey, I remember one time Mike McCormick, before you got there, said one day, he was honest at his news conference, says, "We have a bunch of dogs." So the next game, that tunnel that you walk through at the vet when you walk through the locker room? Okay, right behind the bench. Right. The next game, people brought cans of dog food and threw them at the players. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. All right, I want to talk about your Hall of Fame, and then I want to get to the game on Sunday, the Eagles game. It took you, 19 years? Was it 19 years before you got in all? Was there a point where you either got frustrated, disappointed, upset? Was there a point for any of those that it took you so long to get, elected into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah. Last year was the first year, Howard, that I haven't even asked the Eagles or Raiders to set interviews up and do that sort of thing. Up until that point, I was just it's just a matter of time. And because I'm in the industry, I'm working all the time. So it's not like I'm sitting at home. When training camp starts for the last, I retired in 2002. And not even a week went by before I was at ESPN doing games. So I've been busy for 19 years, basically, either at ESPN or at, I worked for the Pac-12 network for a little bit. In the last 5 years, I've been with the Raiders. So I've been having a great time, broadcasting and doing games and things like that. And whenever the Hall of Fame came up, I was like, hey, at some point they're going to call my name, right? I didn't know about the process. But And hey, I'm just gonna tell it like it is. When Rondé Barber went in, I got a lot of phone calls. Like, hey man, you need to be more aggressive. Like, I mean, man, there needs to be some uh, talk about integrity, and like a lot of guys called me who are already in the Hall of Fame. And so I sat down last year with both the Eagles and Raiders, said, hey, when we come up on this voting time, let's organize some interviews and be in the Philadelphia and Las Vegas media to try and make sure that my name is out there. So last year, like I said, we started and I made it to the finalists and then didn't make it, obviously, got the phone call. And then this year, same kind of situation, but I was able to give people the differences because people were making it as DBs. And I was like, you know what? Let's talk nuance. That's what I did this year. I said, listen, I'm not a DB. I'm a cover cornerback, right? And the Willie Brown, Mel Blount, Mike Haynes, Daryl from Washington, Daryl Green, Dion, myself, we never went to safety. We played cornerback. I played left, right, inside, but when I was inside, it was because the number one receiver on third down was inside. So when I was covering Mike on first and second down, he didn't go inside, but they had a receiver at the time who was more productive on third down. So I went inside. So I just kind of talked about the nuances this year. Talked about, hey, I played 200 something plus games. I have 54 interceptions. You do the math. It kind of comes out to almost 4 interceptions a season. So the consistency. I started day one, and the last game I played, I was a starter. And so we just started talking nuance, and I think that really helped this year because the fan bases and fans in general have so much technology to pull from. We hear about completion percentage, quarterback rating, cornerback rating. Mm-hmm. And I think that really helped this year. And I got a call or an email as we were going through this process, and they said this year they're changing the qualifications to get in. Instead of needing 75 or 70% to get in, mm-hmm. now you need 85% to get in. They made it tougher. And they sat in that room, and I'd heard, I don't know who said it, but I heard there were multiple cornerbacks who stood up and helped with that process.
Oh, that's good.
Paul did an amazing job. He's the Eagles writer. He's a guy who presents all of us. Did an amazing job this year. But they did say there were several cover corners who said, listen, I understand you guys have changed the qualifications, but this dude here has proven that he was one of the best players in this era, and he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. So I appreciate whoever that was.
I think it's Paul Domowitz you're probably talking about. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I know Paul did a great job, but they said there was a cover corner who stood up in the meeting and said, you guys need to, whatever you're doing is not right by this guy. When he's a one of one, I was the only guy in the national football, in the history of the league, cover corner, who had over 50 interceptions and 8 touchdowns, who wasn't in the Hall of Fame.
You know what? I didn't realize it until I heard the numbers. And, sometimes when you watch a player, you say, man, he's really good. But then you don't realize it until he's done playing. I said that to, Barkley and other players. I said, man, you were really good. But the fact that I was there, I didn't appreciate it enough. The fact that you had 54 interceptions in your playing, your time that you played, and that was only second. That was second behind Rod Woodson in that era of time. That's pretty, and he's in the Hall of Fame. That's pretty good.
But see, and that's what I was pointing out is Rod played maybe 5-6 years at safety. Now listen. Now I mean, safety and corner, they're two totally different positions, right? So the safety position is like center field, where, you know, you're over top a lot. Corner, it's like shortstop. You know, third base. So, and that's kind of what I was referring to when I was talking about context. You know, it's one thing to be a DB and, hey, man, you do your thing. You know, you go to corner. If you're able to go to safety and be able to understand that corner mentality and be a ball hawk at safety, that's great. But they're two totally different positions. So when I was being judged with, you know, guys who had the opportunity to play safety for multiple years.
You know what? We have comments here. Eric Allen was a shutdown corner. Yes, he was. And then I have a few people said the vet. We love the vet, whether it was a 700 level. It's just, it was so different. It was just,
it was.
You know, they think the fans here at the link, and they're wonderful and they're great.
Yeah.
But that was such a different mentality. You knew.
you would get a lot of conversations before the games, because remember, we didn't have really cell phones back then like that. But before the game, the opposing teams would come in early to warm up, and receivers you knew, DBs you knew, hey, man, this turf, man, I heard this turf is terrible. Yeah, it is terrible. Now, you know, I would play it up, too. I would, oh, man, it's terrible. When you're going to make a plant, you got to take an extra step or you're going to tear something up. The fan base is going to be all after you. But it was a sense of pride for me. When I would score a touchdown, I would try and throw the ball up to the 700 level. At the beginning of the quick story, before the season start, after my rookie year, the NFL would basically have a notice in my locker. They were like, do you want to pay the fine before the season or as we go through? So there were a couple seasons where my socks were too low, and then I threw the ball in the stands all the time. And they were like, that's a danger. You can't do that. So I would write like a $10,000 check at the beginning of the season every year, because I was just like, hey, listen, just take this because my socks are going to be low. And if I score a touchdown, I'm throwing it in the stands.
Yeah. The NFL gets a little carried away with some of that stuff. All right.
Yeah,
let's talk. They really do. They really do. It's just, but they are the biggest and most powerful company, I think, from controlling things of any company in the world. And you can talk about the, you know, Amazons and all those other things. The NFL just controls everything. All right, let's talk about the game on Sunday.
All right.
It was a beatdown.
It was.
So I have some ideas. I know Jalen Hurts won the MVP and he played terrific, but I think there's other factors there that people don't recognize that won this game for the Eagles. And which factors do you think, besides the quarterback, or maybe better than the quarterback, were important for the Eagles winning on Sunday against Kansas City?
I thought the defensive game plan and up front being able to rush Patrick Mahomes with 4 and have a disciplined pass rush, meaning the ends are not looping inside. There's no TE stunts. You're keeping Patrick Mahomes in the pocket with 4 rushers, and then behind it playing a match zone. So now Kelsey is not able to run choice routes against the linebacker, which means, and I know your people reviewing the show are very educated, but what Kelsey does great is he will come up and he's looking at the middle linebacker, and the middle linebacker is either taking the inside or the outside away. So what he does, he just kind of basketballs him. He'll go to wherever area he's taken away, and then he will like slide away from that leverage. And the other linebacker or the other nickel is too far away. But now, when you're only rushing 4, you're allowing Cooper to be able to roam a little bit and have eyes back to the quarterback. But it all started up front, having that so active. I'm not sure if they lost an important one-on-one situation up front. I mean, Sweat was obviously awesome coming from outside, but the 2 interior guys, so important that they rushed the passer, pushed the pocket, so Patrick had to try and release outside left to right, but that pressure kind of just squeezed him like a python and didn't really allow him outside the pocket where he's so good.
Once the defense shuts them down, then the Eagles get field position. When Seattle was good for all those years, I'm so tired of hearing about Russell Wilson. Give me a break. Really, I'm so tired of hearing about him. Their defense gave them 60-yard fields rather than 80-yard fields. And the field position was so important. And that was the case in this game, and the Eagles' offense took advantage of it. Okay, so another factor that I looked at, and I want to get your thoughts, the offensive line was phenomenal all season. Certainly, I mean, Saquon's a great back, but and they obviously defended against the run, but the offensive line protected the quarterback so well. I mean, what was there once? I think there was one sack of Randall. So I think the offensive line was another factor that was maybe, I think, second in line besides the defense.
I think you're right, and that's kind of this whole season has been a get into the time machine and go back to that complementary style of football that, say, the 88, 89 49ers were playing, where they had, Roger Craig. Of course, they had the great Jerry Rice, Joe Montana. But it all started up front. And I think the Chiefs, their game plan was to not pressure the quarterback. So those defensive linemen were what we call two-gapping. So they would try and get into the offensive lineman and see where the running back was going and then shed and try and go that way. And that's a big reason why Barkley didn't have a great game, because they were really cautious of slipping through, providing holes. But what happens in that situation is now you're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. You're not pushing the pocket. You're not forcing that quarterback to be able to get out left or right. So you're giving him time. That allowed that offensive line really played right into their hands, because now you're about the biggest, most physical offensive line in all of football. You're trying to stand in front of them, and they're just punching. They're long. They did an outstanding job of keeping that length so the defensive lineman couldn't pressure the quarterback on those play-action passes, and those guys were wide open downfield, because that second level now at the linebacker spot, in the nickel spot, they were also concerned and worried about the running game. So the running game, even though it wasn't a spectacular game from the running back standpoint, they really dictated the flow and tempo of that football game along with the offensive line.
I think the coaches are not given enough credit. I mean, Andy Reid, the Eagles had better players. I mean, it's just that simple. It's not even a question.
Yeah.
So Andy Reid, sometimes all season, I think he performed magic, because I don't think they were the best team in the AFC. I think Buffalo was probably a better team. But the reality is, how important, and again, you played under Buddy Ryan. It's a good thing you didn't play under Rich Kotite, who was a complete dope.
I did.
You did? Oh, what a dope he was. He was brutal.
We won a playoff game with Rich Kotite.
Oh, my gosh. I forgot about that. Oh, my gosh. But, the
on
thing
another
is,
show, we'll talk about that.
Oh, okay. We got to talk about, oh, my God. He was, I'll tell you a story. When he played golf, he played a lot of times by himself. He played in 2 hours, 18 holes in 2 hours, which is not easy to do. But when he hit a ball into the rough or somewhere, he just dropped another ball in the
Drop another one, just stay in the drive.
It was nuts. But the coaching, I don't think people gave, and obviously it's hard to get to know Nick Sirianni when you're there just for this week, and you may have obviously have met him other times.
Yeah.
But he's really a good coach. And this town, and I'm going to talk about it when we're done too. This town they wanted him fired between talk radio guys and fans. After 4 games, you got to fire this guy. You got to fire this guy. Bring in Bill Belichick. And stop with all that nonsense. It's just they had 4 games, and he engages the players. How important is it to get the players to both respect you and like you? You don't have to like a coach, but if you get both, that's really important. How important is that for a head coach?
Well, I had a really good conversation with him a couple of weeks ago when I was back in Philadelphia as an honorary captain.
Right.
And first of all, I didn't realize he's kind of a, in shape, kind of bigger dude. I thought he was, I guess, on the small side. He could have played some safety for us at a point. But I told him, I said, Coach, you do your thing. These players respect you. And as far as the alumni are concerned, we would have loved to have a guy like you who is confident in what he's doing and what he's building. And he has a little bit of the player coach mentality, right? But it's about respect and respecting the game. And he is the perfect coach for Philadelphia. He may not roll with he may be okay in Detroit, but he may not be the coach for the Rams. He may not be the coach for the Raiders. He is the perfect guy for the Eagles because the Eagles and all of their different personalities, he has a strong personality in the way he can come into the locker room and have a heart-to-heart, a one-on-one with any player. And he understands that, you know what, all these guys are held accountable, but I'm the head coach. And I just love that aspect about him. People talk, oh, he's not an offensive guy, he's not a quarterback guru and all this stuff, but he has the kind of relationship with his quarterback that he understands and knows what is expected of the position in the biggest moments. And in the biggest moments, his quarterback has played tremendous football based on what he is trying to accomplish as a team. Like I said, I think Hurts is a really good quarterback. I wouldn't put him in the top 5 if you're talking about pocket quarterbacks, but for this football team, like the head coach is a perfect fit, Hurts is the perfect fit for this Eagles football team.
Do you know what he did? And I get along with Chip Kelly, but some of the things he did just didn't work because he had to play what he wanted to play, whether the players fit into that or not. Square peg and round hole type situation.
Yes.
Where Nick Sirianni, I know, and I've talked about it, and some of the Eagles people get pissed off that I said it. Jalen didn't like to take the snap under center. Mm-hmm. So because I guess at a time he felt he couldn't see the field as well as he could in the pistol or the shotgun. So they worked with him, and they didn't force him to do things. Nick Sirianni worked with him and said, okay, we're going to do what works for you and what's comfortable for you. And I don't know how many coaches really do that. You got to work with the player a little bit, don't you?
That's a great point. Now, I'm going to bring up a situation 2 years ago. I'm working with the Raiders. We have Josh McDaniels, right? And Josh McDaniels has 2 or 3 receivers who had productive years. Derek Carr's not the, top 10 quarterback, but Derek Carr was a good quarterback. He's coming off a really great year. And you thought you would take the things that Derek does well and implement them into your offense. No, he didn't do the things that Derek wanted to do, like under center. Derek doesn't like to go under center. He wants to be in the shotgun more. You can run the ball. We had Josh Jacobs, for God's sake. So it is so important that a coach gives you what you can do and makes that something that the offense can run off. And I understand that. When you're talking about a quarterback who wants to process the information from a pistol or shotgun because that gives him a better view, maybe because he's not a 6'4" quarterback. So that gives him an opportunity to really feel relaxed and process the information when he gets the ball, opposed to being under center and now having to drop back. So Hurts's drop back maybe not the typical because of his height situation. So when he gets the shotgun or pistol, he's already able and set up to be able to see and process the information quickly and being able to get the ball out. That's really important for a coach to understand that and adapt his style. That's what it's all about, Howard. A coach once told me early on, he said, it's about alignment and assignment and adjustments. And adjustments are just adaptations. If you don't adjust, you will die, right? If I'm watching film and I see every time this quarterback is under center and he drops back and he's having difficulty difficulty processing. So he's going to really initiate where he's throwing faster. That's helping me. So now if those turtles' shoulders are turned my way, dude, I'm thinking out route. I'm picking that thing all day. But if he is in shotgun and he's processing fast, he doesn't give me those keys, that's a plus for the offense. So again, that shows you the coach's ability to be able to adapt. And when you have someone who's able to do that with maybe the most important position on offense, you're going to have someone who's successful, and he has proven that success being in the playoffs every year he's been a coach.
By the way, I'm not a Josh McDaniels fan. Everybody thought he was good because he worked under Belichick. It's just, come on now.
It's a totally different ball game when you're talking the Patriot way, but the Patriot way was built off something that Bill established in New York and kind of brought that mentality. But a lot of those coaches who left don't really understand that. They can't get on the board and tell you, like, the Patriot way means A, B, and C, and this is why. They can put it on the board, but they don't know why. And that's the big difference between a lot of those guys who left that coaching staff, went elsewhere, and were successful, because they're trying to tell another team about a style of play, a relationship with players that they have no idea how it was set, when it was met, when it was created, how it was created, why it was created. And just unfortunate, for Josh and his family, that he's not been able to kind of separate himself and have his own identity.
Josh McDaniel was second in line behind Sirianni. I don't want to tell you how that happened.
Wow.
Can you imagine if the Eagles, there would no way they'd be having a parade in Philadelphia and have won a Super Bowl.
That would not have lasted very long.
No, it would not have. And it's just unbelievable. Do you know, no coach under Bill Belichick has been successful as a head coach anywhere else. People say, well, Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel wasn't a coach for him.
Yeah, you're right.
He was
wasn't
a player.
Yes.
He was a player.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And I know this story is out there, so it's not like spilling tea. But as we were going through a difficult season 2 years ago with the Raiders, they had a team meeting. And as you know, team meetings in the middle of the season means things are going wrong. So you don't want to be having team meetings in the middle of the season. So they're having a team meeting, everyone's standing up, this and that. Antonio Pierce stands up and starts to talk about how you're not, people counting you out. And he brought up an example of the Super Bowls that the Giants beat the Patriots. And after the meeting, I guess Coach Josh said, "Hey man, don't bring that up again. That's not cool. Don't do that." And it just goes to show you that New England Patriots coaching staff, Bill, of course, I have so much respect for him, and I know he's Belichick. I have a lot of respect for Bill, but those guys who came from that tree were not able to be successful because they haven't lived the experiences that Bill lived. And after that meeting, obviously, Josh was fired and AP was hired. So goes to show you the Patriot way should be in New England, not anywhere else.
Yeah, and when they had Tom Brady too. You know what?
Yeah.
Next time we talk, I want to talk about what it's going to be like to work for Tom Brady. Because basically, you're going to work for whether he's called just a part owner, you're going to be working for Tom Brady. And I'm sure he has his ideas, and I don't know how he is with people. But I just want to wish you are, a Hall of Famer so late. But that's all right. Patience is a virtue, but you got to be really patient.
I did.
To be called a Hall of Famer. And that August, I forget which weekend it is, that August weekend.
Yeah, first week in August.
I went, Dick Vermeil invited me, and it was so amazing and so special, and you appreciate it even more than you think you appreciate it right now, because then you see, you've seen a lot of the Hall of Famers, but you see the
Yeah.
Hall of Famers, you see the people, and you're up there on the stage with all the other Hall of Famers. You're a Hall of Famer, damn it.
Yeah.
You're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, yeah. It's awesome, man. And I just tell people, time reveals the truth. And I'm in there, and I understand. Everyone has told me that about this week of Super Bowl, that you're not going to understand how awesome it's going to be. And they were right. It blew me away. And then the next thing is the enshrinement. And they were like, you have no idea what's going to happen. It's going to blow you away. So I'm super excited and really ready to go. And look for your invitation in the mail.
You know what? I want one. I don't ask
Yes.
for an invitation.
Yeah, I got you.
The next
I got
time,
you.
I'm going to tell you, Dick Vermeil didn't like me when he first got here because I criticized him. So he was uncomfortable with that. We talked about it when I had him on. But he said, yeah, and the other thing is, I didn't like what you said. I ripped him because he worked the players too long. But he said, you had information. I'm saying, damn it, how did he have it? But you were right. So that pissed him off too. But he invited me. I was shocked. But no, we're good friends now. I've been over to his house. We've been out to dinner. We're good friends now. And it's just, he's great. I'm going to tell him about this, and he already knows about it because we stay in touch all the time. But congratulations. And I definitely am looking forward to that Hall of Fame. And I can't wait. You're a Hall of Famer. You are a Hall of Famer. So there's so many more things to talk about. We're going to do this down the line again.
Anytime.
I really appreciate your time. Fun to talk to, and you're not afraid. You're not afraid to say things. Today's guys,
Truth.
you have to retire to understand. You have to retire to understand what it's all about, and then look back and say, you know what? Maybe he was right, or maybe that's the way it should have been.
That's right,
guys. And it's never going to happen. Guys in today's media world, if they criticize somebody, or whether it's writing or saying, you got to go and address it. And if you don't, then just get out of here. But that's not going to happen. Hey, Eric, thanks so much, and again, congratulations.
Oh man, look at this
Hall of
guy
Famer.
behind me. I was right in the middle. All those great Eagle players. There's EA right in the middle.
I actually can't see. Who is that behind you?
Oh, that's the whole group. Izell Jenkins, Jerome, Clyde, Reggie, Golick, all the guys. But EA is right there in the middle.
There you go. Hey, congratulations. And we will talk again. And I can't wait for the Hall of Fame. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, my man.
Take care.
Appreciate it,
all
bud.
Right, take care. Thank you. All right. Eric Allen, and we got so much to talk about, but it was so much fun. And I got to talk about what's going on in Philadelphia, too. Not just the Eagles. We kind of addressed that with Eric Allen. I got to address the Sixers, and the Phillies opened camp today. And I don't know that I liked everything that was said by Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thompson. I'm going to address that, but I want to thank again. First of all, I don't know which platform you're watching this on, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and it'll be up there for people to watch. If you haven't seen the whole thing, you'll be able to catch it. And I want to thank our sponsor. And if you want to be a sponsor, because I'm going to try to do the best I can to get the best people, and I'm going to address situations in Philadelphia that people want me to talk about. So if you want to be a sponsor, you can go to my website, howardeskin.com, just full howardeskin.com, and let me know, and I will personally get in touch with you. I've talked to more than a few people, and I'm pretty sure we're going to engage them, because I only want to deal with people and companies and services that I certainly believe in. And I believe in ABC tickets anywhere in the world. These guys, I've known them for 30 years, can get it for you. All right, we're going to come back, and I got some things that I really want to talk about. It's just, I really want to talk about. We'll do that, and we'll be back very, very shortly. We'll be right back. there are so many situations going on in Philadelphia. Now we know the Eagles are champions, and the parade. I don't think it was a good thing, but it was a good thing to have it on Friday on Valentine's Day, because that hurts a lot of really good people. I know the mayor of Philadelphia said, "Oh, don't cancel your reservations." I don't know how it's going to work when you have the parade. Who knows how many people are hanging around? There's still barriers, but it's too bad that they didn't want to have it on Thursday because they were afraid of the weather. But hey, enjoy the parade. The first one's always the best one, but there's going to be a lot of people out there that enjoy the parade. But here's one of the things I want to talk about. The 76ers, I don't know whether to call them a joke or a disgrace. It's insulting to the fans. It's embarrassing to the fans, and the players should be embarrassed. I've always said that I think Tyrese Maxey, and he did not have a good game. When I'm speaking, it's Wednesday night. Tuesday night they played, and they lose at home to Toronto. And Maxey did not have a good night. But I think Tyrese Maxey is the best player on the team, and I've said that consistently for a couple of years. You can take Joel Embiid. He still wants to shoot the threes. He's going to have more bad shooting nights than good shooting nights because he should be low, but he doesn't want to exert the energy. The team is put together poorly. Bad contracts. Paul George is a terrible contract. Not was, is. 4 years of a max contract for a guy that just, I don't know how many games he'll play this year. He doesn't move the needle. He doesn't, he's going to have a good game once in a while, but he doesn't move the needle. Joel Embiid, to think that Daryl Morey might be, I'm just trying to think of the general managers, and you could say what you want. I mean, Sam Hinkie was a scam artist, but he's just in that category with Sam Hinkie because Sam Hinkie tried to do things that weren't going to work. But he's just terrible. The way he's put this team together and the trade deadline. Did he do anything? Yeah, he got rid of salary. He got rid of salaries to get him under the luxury tax. This team was put together so poorly. They're a team with no energy. They're a team that doesn't fit. They're a team that doesn't play hard all the time. And the coach, maybe he's afraid to step out and say, wait a minute, and he did say it, I think he said it a couple of games ago, they did not play very hard. Well, you got to be a little more forceful than that. They will never, and I said this at least a couple of years ago, Sixers will never win a championship with Joel Embiid. I said this a couple of years ago, and obviously it's going to bear out to be true. He doesn't play hard enough. He doesn't play for his teammates. Now that he got his contract, that's all he cares about is the money. Not all he cares about, it's mostly what he cares about. But he's never going to be, and all these people, if he was healthy. I know people say, well, if he was healthy, he could be one of the top 3 players or 4 players in the league. Well, but he's never going to be healthy. And, at the beginning of the year, here's another thing he didn't do. At the beginning of the year, and I'm going to say this now, they gave him a rehab program to try to strengthen his knee, and he didn't like it. And I was told this. He didn't like it, and he didn't do it. Now, would that have helped him a little bit? Probably would have helped him a little bit. It's a joke. It's a joke. The way he doesn't give everything he can to make this team better. And then he blamed it on, he said last week, he says, I want to play every game, or I want to play most games, something on that line, but God will dictate that. Don't blame it on God. That's just, God doesn't dictate that. You dictate that by the way you work and the way you do things. You got to listen to the coach, listen to the people there, play for your teammates, don't play for yourself, and that's a problem. They're never going to win a championship with Joel Embiid, and they're never going to win a championship with Daryl Morey. I mean, he said last week at a news conference, he says, what did he say? He said, you know, we expect to be contending, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but this is the comment. We're expecting to be contending for the championship. What championship are you talking about? The G League? I don't think they could even win a championship in the G League. They suck. It's just, and that's insulting that the fans go out there and pay really, really good money to watch that team play, and the team doesn't give them everything they've got. Now, what they have is not good enough, but you got to give them you got to beat Toronto at home. You've got to beat Toronto at home. It's a joke. It's just, and their defense is brutal. I know defenses around the league aren't good, but you know, I don't know how many people agree or disagree with me. And we're going to, you know, I'm going to address some of your comments when you make comments, and I am going to address some of your comments when we do these podcasts. But understand, this is kind of they're a farce. They are an absolute, I can't be any more definitive with the way they are. And I had said, I guess the last couple of years, and I'm going to address the Phillies, that the Eagles will be the first team to win a championship, or the next team, I didn't say the first, the next team to win a championship of all the teams in Philadelphia. I really, and I want to mention the Flyers, because I think they're really trying to do the right things, and they are doing the right things, and they're building towards something productive. The Flyers are really building towards something productive, because they have people that know what they're doing. They have people in Danny Briere and Keith Jones that know what they're doing. And they really have some good young players, and they're moving forward with the way they do it. They're going to win a championship before the Sixers. Now, I don't know if that's anytime soon, but the Sixers, I'm telling you, the Sixers, and I say this, are 3 to 4 years away from being 3 to 4 years away from being 3 to 4 years away. No chance. And as soon as they get Joel Embiid out of here, and people say, well, you got to trade him. Who's going to trade him? Who's going to take him? All right, let me, I want to address the Phillies before I go off tonight. Today, players reported, today being Wednesday of this week, first day the players report, pitchers and catchers, but there's other players there. Dave Dombrowski likes his bullpen. We're stacked in the bullpen. I still don't know that they have a closer. I still don't know that they have a closer, a real closer. And, you know, it's going to be closer by committee. I don't know that they have a closer. And somebody sent, I guess, a message to me on one of the social platforms. Phillies are third best team in the division. I really think they are. Now, that doesn't mean anything because nobody's played a game yet. But clearly the Mets are the best team. Atlanta's likely the second best team. And the lineup is the same. I'm glad they didn't trade Alec Bohm. That was just ridiculous. Alec Bohm makes better contact than anybody in that lineup. But Dave Dombrowski talked about his bullpen. The starters, Andrew Painter's not going to, who knows how much he's even going to pitch. I know they tried to trade Suarez, but he's always hurt, and he's on the last year of his contract. You got to hope he doesn't get hurt. But you know, I'm okay with their first two starters, with Wheeler and Nola. Absolutely okay. But I don't like the lineup, and Rob Thompson is not likely to change his lineup. He may change it a little bit, but my lineup that I gave him last year was Stott, and I think Stott would be a better hitter at number 1, Turner number 2, Harper's always going to hit number 3, and I think Bohm hits number 4, and I think Schwarber should hit number 5. And then you go your lefty-righty, all that lefty-righty nonsense you have. But he said, Harper, today Rob Thompson said, you know, he feels the sting of last year, losing to the Mets in the first round. So he feels that sting. But the reality is they got to be better in their lineup, and they got to do more with their lineup. But he doesn't want to hit Schwarber below 4 because he's going to get more at-bats. Hey, listen, if you score runs, he's still going to get a lot. If you get 4 or 5 at-bats a game, 4 is good. 5, he could get 5 if they score runs. They got to find a way, and he's still going to maybe get better pitches when he hits number 5 if players are on base. So, you know, we still have a spring training just started. We have a long way to go. Talk about the Phillies, and I'm going to try to, and I'm sure I can get Rob Thompson on to do one of these. And I busted his, you know, but we do it in a fun way. I don't like his lineup. I don't like I hope he doesn't hit. I'm not sure he's going to hit Schwarber leadoff, and I don't like Schwarber leading off, but they've got a little way to go. They didn't do a lot in the off season. There's always trades in spring training, and they got a long way to go. Season starts the end of March, so what are we, 5 or 6 weeks away from the start of the season? They got a lot of way to go, and Rob Thompson really made a point for the players not to go crazy. Just worry about your health. Don't go full out yet, and I understand that, but and they don't have to go full out, but they got to find a way to not. Strikeouts do mean something, and it's negative, and you got to make contact. You've got to put the ball in play, and the teams that won, they have some home run hitters, but the teams that won also won with putting the ball in play. So, I mean, the Phillies, we got plenty of time to talk about them, but there's a couple of things I wasn't excited about. JT Realmuto, he talked about, and what he said is he's going to have to DH. I don't know how many games he played. I think he played 95 games last year because he's hurt. He's got to be careful to not get hurt, and you can't catch, and there's no way he's going to catch 130 games. So that's a little bit of an issue as well, like who is going to be as good defensively as JT Realmuto behind the plate. So you got to worry about that, or concern yourself, not worry, but concern yourself a little bit. So we'll talk more. Hey, I appreciate everybody being out there. Anybody that has any comments, again, any social media platform that you want to go on and make comments, I try to address all of them and as many as I can, and I will address yours as well. Saturday morning, I'm sure there'll be more things. Sixers will play awful in a game. We'll talk about the parade, which will be mind-boggling, and people just can't get. The last parade was, I didn't see any people going crazy with damage and all those other things that you don't have to get crazy and tear down light posts and shoot off fireworks and all that other nonsense. Just try to be safe and just try to have fun at the parade on Friday, and we'll talk about it Saturday morning. Again, all the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and they'll all post things. And again, thanks for being a part of the Howard Eskin Show. And thanks to our sponsor, ABC Tickets. And thanks to, I'd like to hear from other people that want to be a part of this in terms of sponsoring what I think will be some really great shows with some really good guests. And Charles Barkley, Dick Vermeil, and Eric Allen, pretty good to start off the first 3 episodes. But thanks, and thanks to my production company, Creative Outfit, for doing another great job. I thank you all, and don't be a stranger. Antonio Anastasia does a lot of things on my website, and she's been very important in this process as well. So thanks to everybody. You thank people, but I'm going to rip people too. And the teams, the Sixers are so easy to rip. It's just, I'm thankful. If of anything, I'm thankful I have the Sixers so I can rip somebody and some team. And you got a lot to choose from there. Thanks, and thanks for being a part of the Howard Eskin Show. Have a good night.